Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to webinar number 15 in our Responsible Hillside Living series. I'm Robert Thompson, Principal Architect here at Aki Workshop, and today, or this evening, rather, we are talking about the idea of buying versus building. Now, we're going to be looking at this from going to be examining it from looking at three factors: cost, customization, and time. And we'll be, you know, also looking at build with two considerations. You could either be building a new home or you could be renovating an existing house, right? So the topic is really broad and kind of nuanced because you could buy to renovate, you could buy to knock down and build. So there's a lot of differences you could examine. But what we'll be examining is just a straight comparison between buying, building anew, or renovating. Right? So the three factors: cost, customization, and time. Now, the three options, buy, build, or renovate, has different strong points within these three factors, right? So where cost is concerned, at a comparable level, to buy something would be possibly cheaper than to build or renovate. Whereas customization, to build something new, definitely wins out on customization. And time's also um, a big one for buying, right? But some would argue that a renovation could cost less than buying a new home as well, right? But it all depends on the kind of scope or scale of your renovation or scope and scale of your new build, right? Here we have some comparative charts of the three factors, and you'll see that a new building is much more favorable with customization, and buying a home is much more favorable with time. And also, there's a there's a close cost comparison between renovating and buying a new home, right? Anybody wishes to jump off mute and give me any thoughts on what they think about these three factors, and are there any other factors they could think of that we could consider? I want this to be a nice back and forth discussion, so feel free to just jump off mute and give me your thoughts if you have any, or put it in the chat box. I'll give you I'll give you 2 minutes or a
I
minute.
think that for me, renovating might be a headache. I
Mhm.
I have had some experience in terms of having something being renovated, a home being renovated, and it's
Mhm.
too many question marks for me.
Mhm.
So I would be leaning towards the building or buying brand new, even though the time in terms of building would be more, but
Mhm.
renovating, not that's not for me.
Yeah, so with a renovation, no matter how much you plan, there may be some hidden things that you won't know. Everything is an assumption until you break. I always say once you break the walls, then you actually know what's actually gonna happen. Right? Anybody else? No? All right. I'll jump into it. So I wanted to give you guys some pros and cons around the three um three ideas. So buying is again speed, lower upfront costs, depending. You could buy in an established neighborhood. You could buy somewhere you want to live instead of having to buy land where it's, most likely going to be cheaper. Um, it's way less risk. You pretty much have, maybe, little to no risk, depending. And you could always negotiate the price, right? But the cons, however, is that depending if it's a new house, then one of these cons won't apply. But old infrastructure, if you buy a house, you might be, you don't know what kind of potential issues there are. And then, limited customization. So I always say it depends on what you value in your house. Whether you value time, customization or cost. Now, to build, you have the full flexibility of, building your dream, building what comes to mind, depending on your budget, of course. Um, you could build something that's more energy efficient because you'd be using materials that are kind of like, being developed and so on. Lower maintenance costs in the early stages, at least. And you get a lot of personal satisfaction, this should be number one actually, because that would be your main reason for building if you value that, if you value the kind of like I've created something feeling, you know? Cons, cost, of course, the time is unpredictable. You have to acquire land if you don't already have it in a specific location, if you have, thoughts of a location. And costs are again uncertain because if it's on a hillside versus if it's on flat land versus if it's in soil you have like, really clay soil, you never know. These all of these factors will kind of be added to that decision. Then with renovations, it could be more cost efficient. You could renovate on a budget, yeah, but you'd have to temper what you want to do, right? And maybe you have sentimental value around a space. You already live in this space, and you just think, there's certain things you want to change in how you live, right? But you still want to keep the character of the place, and you want to stay in that location. Um, you increase the equity of your building when you renovate it. And renovation is the most sustainable option of the three because you're giving new life to old structures, which in all honesty, that's kind of like one of the most sustainable things you could do instead of knocking and building anew. You should see how much you could reuse, but it doesn't work in every case. Um, Unpredictable costs is one of the biggest cons. The minute you break ground with a renovation, your costs start going up because all the assumptions you had to make during design, even if you had a designer at least, um, you start to know if it's true or not. So that causes time disruption, and your customization is limited a little bit less than build, but I'm sorry, a little less than buy, but still limited. And to make it more energy efficient, you might have to do more. So let's say, for instance, you live in a house that had louvers and you want to AC it. Now you have to get, better windows to be able to AC it, right? So of the three options, anybody want to jump off mute and tell me what they like, dislike about any one of them? What are you considering if you're considering it?
Hi.
Hi,
Um,
Crystalline.
Hi. So I'm definitely considering building. Uh,
Okay.
yes, taking into account land location and cost too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I really am looking forward to the fact that I would have something built to my customization, something that,
Yeah.
has all the things that I want in it rather than having to go into something. and try and may fail to
Mm-hmm.
get that installed.
And
Yeah.
what's your biggest challenge so far?
Um, for me, the biggest challenge is location because I grew up in a hilly area. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I am very partial to hilly areas. So I think that's the thing for me right now. Everywhere I look, I notice that I'm very drawn to hilly areas. So I mean, it's something
Mm.
I am trying to, I don't know, maybe change my outlook on. Yeah.
But it sounds like it's very important to you to live
It
on a
is
hill.
because I mean the view you can't beat a view, you know,
Yeah.
from a hilly perspective, especially where I grew up. You had this like all around view. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
can stand in on the porch and you can see what's happening on the main
Mm-hmm.
road, or if somebody is coming to you, you can already tell before they arrive, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, the winds and that type of, it's very, very refreshing. Sometimes it could be very, very, it's an amazing thing.
So you
And so
really
I feel
value
like
that.
I'm very, yes, I do. I really, really,
Excellent.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, good luck. How close are you?
Thank you. Still looking. Really,
Okay, cool.
yeah. Thank you.
Good luck. No problem. Anybody else?
Hi.
Hi.
Right. So my preference is definitely to build.
Right.
Um, I currently live in Kingston, in the
Mm-hmm.
heart of the city, New Kingston. But
Mm-hmm.
myself and my husband, we're both from the countryside.
Which
And so
one?
it
Which
has
country?
always been, sorry, I'm from St. Elizabeth and he's from St. Mary.
All right.
So, but we're both, transplanted Kingstonians, but our preference is definitely to build. And so we want something, well, we've already acquired the land and
Mm-hmm.
hoping to start building next year.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we found something that's in the hills that is sort of reminiscent of the countryside, not
Right.
as flat as a hillside,
Mm-hmm.
but it is very lush and serene and quiet with
Mm-hmm.
nice roads, quiet residential area.
Yeah.
And we enjoy the mist in the morning, the cool evenings. Now during
Mm-hmm.
the winter season, it's pretty cold.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that is what we are looking for. So to me, as much
Right.
as I don't know where the first dollar coming from to build, but
You know
that is
what you value.
yeah, the value, the thing, the that which cannot be bought is what I value the most. And
Yeah.
so build is definitely where we're heading.
All right. Super. Excellent. Thanks for sharing.
Welcome.
All right. So, when does it make sense to do one of these things? So, as Celia and Crystalline said, well, this is for buying. So if you value modern features or you value specific kind of like qualities of an existing house and you need something to move into now, you don't want to kind of fart around with doing anything, then buying is definitely the option to go for. And then of course you could buy and then renovate later if you want. Um, Building, as Celia and Crystalline said, it's all about the customization and that feeling of creating something that's yours, can't be beat. But you have to work a lot harder for it, which again, if you really value it, then you'll do it. And to renovate, you know, maybe you're living in this house already and you have a special connection to it, maybe budget tight. You don't want to go buy land to build or buy a new house. You just renovate what you have, smaller budget, you know? And if you're willing to compromise certain things, then you could do that. So I'm gonna take you through a small case study that we did where, I mean, it it was a roller coaster. Um, and in the middle of it, we're like, we should have knocked it down, right? So this is a house we did in 2017. It took it wasn't that long build. We started in like late 2017 and finished like early 2019 completely. And it was a house for a family of three. But it was kind of like almost in disrepair. There was a main house and an annex. The annex was kind of, derelict. The house had a lot of irrationalities, like the roof was kind of like higgly-piggly, like, kind of weird. And there's a lot of water damage and so on. And it was dark and dingy. So in the middle image here, this was like when renovation was in full swing. We just thought, wow, we, we might as well just knock down the house and rebuild it because it looks like everything is gone. And this was actually a lot of the walls got demolished as well because we had to put in structural reinforcements. So at one point, it was just kind of like some little pieces of wall standing up. It was a mess. So this is just looking at what changed. So let's see properly here. So this is the existing house, ground floor. And you walk in here, you have this um, you have this very tight patio. Then you get into the living room, a tiny opening to the kitchen, go up these steps. Then the dining room was locked off, a small bathroom on the ground floor, and a bedroom. Then what we decided to do was the red marks is just showing you what we knocked out. So we got rid of a part of the patio to kind of open it up. Then we opened up the dining room, opened up the living room a bit more, got rid of some corner windows, rationalized the openings in the kitchen, and just removed a lot of doors and stuff. So it wasn't exactly a massive renovation, but it just turned into it because it was a 30-year-old. Well, they lived there for 30 years. It was probably 70 years old, the house. And this was the kind of idea as to, the change. So we would, replan the kitchen, replan the living and dining, replan the entry with some nice sliding doors, and keep kind of like the bathroom, but replan the bathroom and do the guest room out, right? This was, oops, let me zoom out. This was like the first sketch of what the idea was going to be, and what things were going to be made of. We're going to redo the roof, make some nice windows, have planter boxes. That didn't happen because budget changed. Um, have shutters on the lower levels, and just going through it all. This was the final product. But going through it all, as I said, with a renovation, once you break ground, everything goes out the window, right? This ended up probably, the budget probably went up by 50% the minute we broke ground. And then, when you break ground and you start construction, the floorboards were rotting, and we didn't plan to change the floorboards. So then we had to consider, how do we now navigate this? And the biggest problem if you go in about a renovation by yourself is that problems occur quickly and you need quick solutions, or else you have workmen waiting. When a workman is waiting, that's costing you money, right? So the lucky thing about this project is that we were on it from start to finish, and we were just kind of solving issue after issue because it's a 70-year-old house. So it's gonna have many issues. And then navigating contractors and client relationships and so on. So this was like a case study of what it would have probably cost the same cost the same. It would have probably been the same final cost if we knocked it all down. And we built the same thing, but then we'd have, all new materials. But it probably would have taken much longer because this took probably a year to build fully like moved in. right? So, renovations, as much as it's the cheapest, it's the most unpredictable of the three options. Building is also unpredictable and risky. Buying is the least risk but the least customizable. And I guess you get, unless you find something you really love, you get less joy from buying a house than building it. Any other questions? Any comments? Anything you want to add?
No, other than I agree with your sentiments about the three options.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's a tricky thing, but again, depending on your budgeting circumstance, you might get forced into different ones, right? Now what I would say is a renovation and a new build is somewhat close because you can customize a renovation as much as you want if you're creative and you stay within structural kind of allowances that the building gives you. I mean, there's a lot that can be done with what you have, and it's the most sustainable option. And given where we are now, you need to kind of look at those sustainable options or building sustainably if you're going to build from scratch, right? So I think that's the end of my presentation, but we want to, our mission here at Aki Workshop is to improve the accessibility of thoughtful design. So, we'd really love to talk to you guys to hear more about what your thoughts are. Are you planning builds? Are you looking at renovations? Are you looking to buy? And, you know, if you want advice, we're more than willing to give you some advice. We have a free virtual consultation that we offer. You could jump on a call with us to just shoot some ideas, anything you want to do. Right? So any other questions regarding the renovations? Any burning questions or comments? Anything that wasn't clear?
For me, everything was clear. I just wanted to ask one question though.
Tell me.
The bill that you just showed,
Mm-hmm.
what were the clients' feedback at the end of it? And given the fact that they had to scale down on some of their um, plans.
Mm-hmm. So, like, so the issue is, yeah, when you start thinking about a project as a client, you always think you could get more than what you could get for the price you want to pay, right? It's just natural. And even if you start out strict, like, okay, I'm only doing this. Once the process starts and you start seeing, especially in the design phase, you start seeing things, you start adding things you want. So, you start from a budget here and, you just start going up. And when you get the price, start coming back down. And
Yes.
then, so, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's the case here where it started at a price that was really too low for what they wanted to do.
Okay.
And then when we got the first prices in, we took one of the bidders and we negotiated them to a kind of space where, okay, this could work for us. But then once we broke ground, we're like, well, there are these problems that are coming up, and we didn't have much contingency. So, they managed to, work with it, and we managed to find creative ways to solve these things. And in the end, they were happy with it. There were some relationship issues, of course, because again, in construction, it's not just like the design. It's about the relationship you have with who's building it, with the team. And that will greatly affect your outcome, you know?
Yeah,
Yes,
there's an emotional investment on the client's part.
intensely. And the builders and the
Yes,
architect, it's a relationship, you know. It's not just it's a service that's really tied to emotion. It's not like a lawyer that just writes you a letter and you're off. You
yeah,
know, we need to get to know your thoughts,
yeah,
right? We need to really get to know you to understand how you want to live. Like for instance, you want to build. What is it you're trying to change about how you live now?
right.
Things like that. We need to consider.
It's a
Because
lifestyle thing. I'm in real estate, so I know when I'm selling properties, I'm not selling just a house or it's a
ex
lifestyle. I'm selling them a different lifestyle.
exactly. Exactly. So we're doing the same. We're actually what we're trying to do is trying to kind of create a narrative and create a vision that you then it motivates you to kind of like build it. So it's even I think it's even harder.
Yeah. Thank you so
You know what I
much.
mean? Yeah, man, no problem. Anybody else? Nope.
I believe there's a question in the chat.
Oh, oh, two questions in the chat. Let's see. Oh, turn up the volume on my speaker. Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes,
no.
we can hear you.
Okay, great. All right. Well, just to close off, as I said, we offer a free virtual consultation to anybody who would like to have a chat with us. If you don't want to talk in the bigger group here. Um, and we'll send out a link to that when we send out the link to the webinar. You could also go to our YouTube page and find other webinars we've done. We've had, I can't believe 15 now. So there's a wealth of information on our YouTube page, and follow us on Instagram and so on. And just to kind of close off, if you there, again, there's pros and cons as you see to all of this. But the most important thing is to find the thing that gives you the most joy. And just go with that feeling and you'll find a way to do it. Right? It's always a way to do what you want. So if there's no other questions, I'll give you maybe another minute. Anybody wanna jump on with a question? No? Well, if anybody has any questions afterwards, you could feel free to email us, drop us a message on Instagram or anything, and we'll definitely look to answer you. And we'd love to kind of like meet up and have a chat online if you want to do a virtual consultation. All right. So thank you all for coming. And hopefully we'll see you at the next one, number 16, in 2 months. And what we also want to do is send out emails to, you people that come to these webinars to ask, what else would you like us to talk about? Anybody have any, that's a good thing to ask. No, what, like Celia, for instance, what would you like to hear more of?
Probably. I mean, I've watched all of your webinars.
No, thank you.
So I don't know, probably something on current prices for
Oh, that's
construction.
hard.
I
That's
know, I
hard.
know, I know.
That's that's too hard because it's like, prices are, like that.
Yeah, I know.
The price is
But
never the price until you
you
finish.
had something very similar in a previous one though,
Yeah,
construction prices
yeah,
and so
yeah.
on. But
All right, well, we'll see what we could spin.
okay.
maybe we'll come on with a quantity surveyor and have him talk us through the process of pricing.
Yes. Yes. Oh yes, that would be good.
Yeah,
That's
brilliant.
interesting.
Well, I'll get that sorted and see if we can get that done. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.